Welcome back to Tethered and Whole. My name is Matt. I'm your host for today. Fear, it's one of the most basic human instincts, yet people experience it in remarkably different ways. I was reminded of this on a flight to Denver a couple of years ago when the woman sitting next to me clenched her jaw during turbulence and whispered, "I told my husband I don't like to fly. I'm never flying again." And then as the plane shook and then it dropped in midair, our stomachs turning flips, she turned absolutely white. I've never seen anybody so pale in my entire life. So I tried to distract her by starting a conversation and asking her about her trip. And, they had just been fishing off the coast of Florida, but that didn't do much. So I offered her my hand and guided her through a few slow breaths. I don't know whether it helped, but we landed safely. Statistically speaking, we were never truly in danger. Modern planes are designed to withstand extreme conditions, and no commercial airline has been lost to turbulence in decades. Still, fear rarely listens to statistics. And fear also sits underneath many of the emotions we label as big feelings. Anger is often fear of losing control or status. Defensiveness can be fear of being exposed or being judged. Withdrawal may be fear of rejection or harm. Even perfectionism is frequently driven by fear of failure, disappointment, or not being enough. And so when we zoom out and look at the intensity of emotions playing out in classrooms, in board meetings, on social media, and in public discourse, we often see fear wearing different costumes. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong, fear of being replaced, or fear of not belonging. Naming fear as the root emotion does not excuse harmful behavior, but it does help us understand it more accurately and respond with greater clarity. At its core, fear is an involuntary, short-lived emotional response to a real and known threat. It originates in the oldest part of the brain, which is designed to keep us alive. And when that system perceives danger, it triggers the familiar fight, flight, or freeze response before logic ever comes in and enters the picture. Now, fear can be life-saving, like when we instinctively brake to avoid an accident, but fear is often confused with other emotional experiences that operate very differently. Phobias, worry, and anxiety, they may feel similar to fear, but they're not the same. Phobias are irrational fears in which the emotional response far outweighs the actual level of threat. Worry is a looping chain of thoughts and mental images often focused on trying to solve problems that either do not exist or can't be solved. Anxiety is a longer lasting stress response to an unclear or an unknown threat. Unlike fear, anxiety does not require a specific trigger and often lingers kind of in the background, shaping how we interpret the world. For educators, worry can feel like a default setting. Sometimes that worry is practical and even helpful. It can drive preparation, problem solving, and performance when it is attached to something we can influence. More often, however, our worry attaches itself to things beyond our control, like whether a student will get sick before a holiday, whether an email was misinterpreted, or whether our child will get home safely. This type of hypothetical worry slowly erodes well-being and drains emotional energy. Worry and anxiety are also contagious in classrooms, on teams, and in families. It is often possible to trace collective anxiety back to a single person whose nervous system sets the emotional tone for the group. Just as stress spreads, however, so does calm. Calm is an antidote to fear, worry, and anxiety because it communicates safety before words even do. When someone enters a room rushed, tense, or dysregulated, that state is felt by others almost immediately. When someone enters grounded and regulated, they create a space for others to settle as well. Here's what we don't talk about enough. Fear, worry, and anxiety may show up differently, But calm is the antidote to all of them because calm communicates safety before logic ever enters the room. And whether you realize it or not, you are always transmitting your nervous system to the people around you. So when you walk into a classroom, a meeting, or your home already rushed, tense, and spun up, that state spreads. But when you slow your breath, ground your body, and choose calm, you create space for everyone else to regulate too. And that may be one of the most powerful forms of leadership that you practice. I learned this early in my teaching career from two colleagues. One was constantly worried, always trying to prevent every possible problem before it appeared. The other, consistently calm, addressing issues as they arose without borrowing stress from the future. Early on, as an inexperienced teacher, I gravitated toward the worrier because to me, preparation looked like competence. Over time, however, I realized that calm, that looked like wisdom. The calm colleague was less reactive, more grounded, and modeled the kind of educator that I wanted to become. So, how we respond to fear, worry, anxiety is often shaped by our family of origin. Some of us learn to overfunction in times of stress, moving quickly into fixing, doing, and controlling. Others learn to underfunction, retreating inward and leaning more heavily into emotion rather than action. Developing your self-awareness around these patterns is essential. Once you can name how you tend to respond when things go sideways, you can begin to change it. As the saying goes, when you name it, you can tame it. The next time you walk into a stressful situation, try a simple reset. Slow your breathing. Name what you are feeling. Ask yourself whether you have enough facts to support your reaction. Then ask whether escalating your anxiety will actually help the situation. Because fear, phobias, worry, and anxiety may all show up differently, but calm, steady, grounded, intentional calm remains one of the most generous gifts you can offer to the people around you and to yourself. Thanks for joining me this week, and I hope to see you next time on Tethered to Nowhere.